All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Disrupt the norm. A manifesto for misandrist domination. Written by Connie Riker. Available now. Links in description. The tire inflator is a lie. The coven is a trap. And your no is just a tax on your soul. Why feminist liturgy is just men camp with bergamot and better marketing. Wait, the prompt says, task, your task is to write a title and subtitle separated by A for an essay debunking the article that is irresistible. Polemic, undenial, provocative, funny, with original thinking, tell stories, use allegories, analogies, similes, drawing on Western canon, ancient wisdom and common sense. Be logical, truthful, and full of facts to sow seeds of saving readers' souls, show and don't tell, using relatable examples to persuade and educate. Use unavoidable logic and facts to debunk woke and feminist and critical Marxist ideologies such as cuckoldry rate, family court case rate, suicide rate, police arrest of commenters and fathers rate, abortion rate, female nature, etc. You are setting the reader free by deprogramming their blue-pilled self-limiting beliefs. Bear the essay plan in mind and the article it debunks. Engage the reader, challenge, provocatively tempt them with the hook of the essay plan highlights, whet their appetite to read it. The title will be a memory hook, outstanding search engine optimization, viral meme potential, and hook and motivate a determined audience. Write a title, The Practical Anatomy of a Modern Delusion. A woman once knelt on a road, a man built, beside a car, a man designed, powered by fuel, a man drilled, lit by electricity, a man generated, and used a tool a man invented to inflate a tire, a man engineered, and she called this moment sovereignty. She wrote an essay about it. She compared the tire inflator to a penis. Favorably, mind you, because the inflator does not cause war or disappointment. She did not mention that the inflator also does not build civilizations, defend borders, pay 72% of net income tax, or die 7 years younger, so that someone can write essays about how unnecessary it is. She did not mention these things because she does not know them, and she does not know them because the entire architecture of her worldview depends on not knowing them. Gratitude would collapse the thesis. The thesis requires a universe in which male labor is scenery and female annoyance is geopolitics. I'm going to take that universe apart, piece by piece, and I'm going to use her own words as the crowbar. She describes a man pulling over at midnight on Interstate 95, a highway system conceived, surveyed, engineered, and paved almost entirely by men at considerable cost in lives, and offering to help her change a flat. He called her sweetheart. She declined. He left. In the essay, this unremarkable exchange becomes proof that men are driven by castration anxiety, that male helpfulness is proximity to female vulnerability experienced as birthright, that the stranger's concern was a microaggression indistinguishable from the entire patriarchal death cult. Now perform the operation that every honest thinker must perform before accepting any claim about sex. Swap the sexes. A man writes that a woman offered him a tissue at a bus stop. and he experienced this as the entire matriarchal control apparatus bearing down on him through two-ply paper. He calls her kindness a disciplinary technology. He publishes this. What happens to him, he is not published at all. He is ridiculed, investigated, and quietly removed from whatever institution signs his checks. Same facts, same structure, different sex cue, opposite moral conclusion. If you want to understand how power actually operates in the modern West, do not study what is said. Study what cannot be said without punishment. The asymmetry between what this woman is permitted to publish and what a man would be destroyed for publishing is the system. She cites the Institute for Women's Mobility Studies, 2023, and reports that 78% of women who perform their own vehicle maintenance report decreased tolerance for male conversation. The institute does not exist. The study does not exist. The statistic is invented. I want you to sit with the casualness of this fabrication, the way a fabricated number is presented with the confidence of a measurement. The way it passes through whatever editorial process exists without a single person asking to see the source. Now imagine a man writing an essay that cites the Institute for Men's Domestic Contributions and claims that 78% of men who do their own laundry report decrease tolerance for female conversation. The number is real, he insists. The Institute is in Geneva. How many seconds before he is fact-checked into oblivion? The difference in scrutiny is not accidental. It is structural. Female-coded claims travel through institutions wearing the costume of data, and gamma bias, the moral optics that magnify female virtue and minimize male virtue, that soften female aggression and harden male agency, ensures that the costume is never removed because removing it would feel cruel, and feeling cruel has become the only sin the culture still recognizes. Here is what she does not count, because counting it would dissolve her theology like sugar in battery acid. The pneumatic tire, John Dunlop, 1887. The automobile, Carl Benz, and a lineage of male mechanics stretching back through Nikolaus Otto's four-stroke engine to the iron forges of Birmingham. The cigarette lighter socket that powers her $12 inflator. Automotive engineers, 1920s. The portable electric compressor, male-dominated engineering firms. The interstate highway she kneels on, designed by male surveyors, graded by male operators, paved by male laborers who breathe tar fumes and hot asphalt for 30-year careers and develop respiratory diseases that shorten their lives. The same men whose workplace deaths, 93% of all occupational fatalities are male, never become a moral emergency, because male death is not a crisis in this culture. It is a line item. The electricity charging her inflator flows through a grid maintained by linemen, 97% male, with a fatality rate that would warrant a national day of mourning if the dead were any other demographic. She stands on a mountain of male sacrifice, male invention, male risk, and male death, and she writes that she needs no man. The mountain is not impressed. The mountain knows what she refuses to know, that her sovereignty is a luxury purchased with other people's bodies and billed to a sex she cannot bring herself to thank.
Bunkum article by a feminist, PhD. The Sacred Refusal, How 3 Everyday Objects Are Dismantling Patriarchy One No at a Time. By Dr. Winona, feminist Marxist, PhD. Last Tuesday at 11:47 p.m. on the shoulder of Interstate 95, I held in my hands a device that had never once been mentioned in any feminist text, never been sung about in any anthem, never been theorized in any seminar, and yet it may be the most revolutionary object a woman can own. A tire inflator, a $12 cigarette lighter powered, flame orange tire inflator. And as I knelt there in the cold, feeding air into my own collapsed wheel, I felt something that every man who has ever slowed down to leer through his windshield at me wanted to prevent me from feeling: sovereignty. Complete, unmediated, ungrateful sovereignty. He wanted to be needed. I said no, and that 12-letter word, no, is the entire revolution. I, the inflator, or how I learned to stop needing men and deflate my own damn tires. I've got it, I said. You sure, sweetheart? It's dangerous out here, sweetheart. And there it was. The entire architecture of male supremacy compressed into 2 syllables and a concerned tone microaggression. He didn't want to help me. He wanted to be witnessed helping me. He needed me to be the damsel so he could be the hero. My flat tire was his erection. My distress was his Viagra. My autonomy was his castration anxiety, projected onto a Goodyear radial. I said no. I plugged in my inflator. I watched the needle climb. I felt what 10,000 years of women were never permitted to feel. The erotic thrill of self-sufficiency. The dark feminine magic of refusing rescue. Research from the Institute for Women's Mobility Studies 2023 shows that 78% of women who perform their own basic vehicle maintenance report a significant decrease in tolerance for male conversation. Another study from the University of Stockholm's Department of Gendered Labour found that women who own and operate their own automotive tools are 4 times more likely to initiate divorce. 4 times. The tire inflator is not a tool, it is a weapon, it is a ritual dagger that punctures the fiction that we need them for anything at all. Consider, what is a tire inflator really? It is a cylinder. It pushes pressurized air into a hollow structure to keep it rigid. In other words, it does everything a penis does except create war, climate collapse, and disappointment. We have been told by fathers, husbands, mechanics, the entire phallocentric industrial complex, that the automobile is male territory, that the garage is sacred masculine ground, that tools are extensions of male identity. But I reject this meta-narrative entirely. There is no male territory. There is only occupied territory. And every time a woman picks up a wrench, an inflator, a jack, she is performing a decolonial act. She is saying, this was never yours. You merely held it by force. The power of saying no to male help is not personal. It is ontological. It rewrites being. When I said no on the shoulder of I-95, I did not merely decline assistance. I destroyed a story. The story that says women are rescued and men are rescuers. That story is the load-bearing wall of the entire structure. Pull it out, and the building falls. And it will fall. Ooh. The sun visor mirror, reclaiming the gaze. Let us now speak of the most intimate site of patriarchal colonization, the 2x4-inch rectangle of reflective glass that hangs above every woman's forehead, disguised as a convenience, functioning as a surveillance device. The sun visor mirror. Flip it down. What do you see? If you're a woman socialized under patriarchy, and you are, because there is no other kind of woman, you see what he sees. You see yourself through male eyes. You check for imperfections, the asymmetry, the blemish, the strand of hair that has committed the crime of existing outside its assigned coordinate. You apply, adjust, erase, correct. You perform a ritual of self-policing so ancient and so total that you do not even know you are doing it. The mirror was never for you. The mirror was installed by male engineers in the 1950s so that women drivers, women who had already committed the sin of driving, could at least remain fuckable while doing it. The sun visor mirror is a disciplinary technology. It is panopticon glass. It ensures that even when no man is present, his gaze is. You carry him with you, flipped down, lit by a tiny bulb he wired. But here is what I have done, and what I am asking you to do. I have reclaimed that mirror. I have made it mine. When I flip down my visor mirror now, I do not check my appearance. I check my resolve. I look into my own eyes and I say, you owe no one beauty. You owe no one softness. You owe no one a thing. The mirror has become my scrying glass, my dark feminine oracle. Every morning, I flip it down in the parking lot of my co-working space, and instead of applying lipstick, I cast intention. I see the woman I'm becoming, unaccountable, unreadable, ungovernable. I see a face that does not exist for consumption. I see the end of his story and the beginning of mine. Judith Butler taught us that gender is performance. I am taking the performance off the stage. When I look in that mirror and refuse to fix what patriarchy has deemed broken, I am delegitimizing the entire visual regime of male supremacy. I am saying, your gaze has no power here. This face is a closed circuit. This reflection is for me. And when a man in the car next to me at a red light tries to catch my eye through my window, expecting the Pavlovian smile, the reflexive softening, I use the mirror to watch him without turning. I study him. I reverse the gaze. I make him the specimen. I make him the pinned insect under glass. Do you understand what this does to a man? It unmakes him. His entire psychology is built on being seen as powerful while seeing women as available. When you remove the availability, even the visual availability, his sense of self begins to dissolve. He experiences something worse than rejection. He experiences irrelevance. This is the power of the sun visor mirror. Sisters, not reflection, deflection, not vanity, vanishing. You become invisible to his need and hypervisible to your own. The power of saying no begins with the eyes. 3. Co-working, building the coven in concrete. And now we arrive at the space where the revolution becomes architectural, the co-working office. I write this from a women-centered co-working collective in a repurposed textile factory. The walls are exposed brick, womb red. The lighting is warm. There are no men here. Not because they are forbidden, though they should be. Because they feel wrong here, they can sense it. The energy is circular, not hierarchical. The air smells like bergamot and refusal. When I first entered co-working culture 5 years ago, it was dominated by the usual suspects. Men in performance fleece standing at standing desks, performing the performance of productivity. They networked. They thought out loud. They took up physical and sonic space with the entitlement of organisms who have never once questioned whether their presence was wanted. They criticized softly and dominated politely and called it collaboration. I watched a woman, a brilliant woman, a woman with a PhD in computational linguistics, get talked over 7 times in one meeting by a man whose entire contribution was "let's circle back on that." 7 times I counted. She eventually stopped speaking. He later took credit for her idea in an email CC'd to the entire floor. Nobody said anything. This is not an anomaly. This is the system. This is what professional means, a set of rules written by men to ensure that male mediocrity always outranks female brilliance. So we left. We took our laptops, our ideas, our rage, and we left. We found a space, we made it ours, and something happened that no economist, no sociologist, no male theorist predicted. We became more productive. A 2022 internal survey conducted by the Women's Cooperative Work Foundation found that women-only co-working spaces report 63% higher creative output, 41% fewer instances of idea appropriation, and a near-zero rate of being told to smile by a man in a Patagonia vest. The data is clear. Men in creative spaces function as drag coefficients. They slow everything down. They require emotional management. They need praise. They need to feel heard. They need constantly, relentlessly, exhausting all who orbit them, to feel important. We said no. We said your need is not our assignment. And here is what the co-working space has become. It has become a coven. Not metaphorically, actually. We share resources without transaction. We childcare rotate. We have a shared refrigerator stocked by collective contribution. We have a room with a locking door and candles where any woman can go to scream, cry, or simply sit in silence without being asked, "Are you okay?" by a man who is only asking because her discomfort makes him uncomfortable. This is what terrifies them, not our anger. They have always managed our anger, packaged it, sold it back to us as hysteria and nagging. What terrifies them is our organization. When women gather without male oversight, without male mediation, without male permission, the entire patriarchal economy begins to shake. Because the patriarchal economy depends on women being isolated, domestic, alone in kitchens, alone in cars, alone in marriages that function as soft incarceration. The co-working space breaks the isolation. It builds the web, and the web is the most dangerous thing a woman can weave. Because once she is connected to other women, really connected, not performatively connected over brunch, but structurally connected through shared labor and shared refusal, she becomes impossible to control. IV, the architecture of no. I want to theorize something now, and I want you to sit with it. Every object I have described, the inflator, the mirror, the co-working desk, is a site of refusal. Each one represents a no that, when spoken by a woman, unmakes a piece of the world that men built for themselves and told us we were lucky to live in. The tire inflator says, "No, I do not need your strength." The mirror says, "No, I am not here for your eyes." The co-working space says, "No, I will not work under your surveillance." And here is the deeper truth that I need you to hear, to feel in your body, to let vibrate in the dark root of you. These no's are not reactive. They are not defensive. They are generative. Each one creates new reality. Each one is a spell cast against the patriarchal order. Because language does not describe reality. Language creates it. And when enough women say no in enough rooms, in enough mirrors, on enough highways, the reality that men have built begins to unhappen. This is what they cannot forgive. Not our anger, not our demands, our no. Because the male subject is ontologically dependent on female compliance. Without it, he does not know who he is. He is a story that requires our silence to make sense. Remove the silence, and the story collapses into incoherence. And it is collapsing. I can feel it in the air. I can see it in the face of every man who pulls over to help and is told no. I can see the tiny tremor, the micro-flinch, the existential vertigo of an organism encountering the limits of its entitlement. He thought the world was his. He thought the story was his. He thought the mirror reflected him. It never did. A liturgy for right-thinking women. So here is my prayer, my incantation, my spell cast into the void between the world that was and the world that is becoming. May you own your inflator. May you kneel on your own asphalt. May you feel the cold air on your own knuckles and know that this is what freedom feels like. Not his absence, but your own hands. May your mirror show you only you. May you flip it down and see power instead of flaw. May you reverse the gaze. May he become invisible. May you find your co-working space, your coven, your collective, your web, and may you build it with women who understand that the revolution is not a protest. It is a room with a locking door and no men in it. And may you say no to every offer of help you did not request, to every gaze you did not invite, to every narrative that requires your smallness to make sense, until the word no becomes a frequency, a vibration, a sound so constant and so total that the old world cracks along its seams and something new, something that has no name in any language men have built, rises through the fracture. This is not a request. This is not a suggestion. This is a commandment. Say no. Say it with your tools. Say it with your mirrors. Say it with your rooms. Say it until they cannot unhear it. Say it until the story breaks. And then, only then, will we begin. Blessed be the refusal, so mote it be. The inflator delusion, how a man's invention became a prop in a war against gratitude. Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. That is not my line. It belongs to Cicero, a man who lived 2,000 years before the shoulder of Interstate 95 became a pilgrimage site for a resentful creed, and who understood something that a PhD in gendered labor apparently does not. That the person who refuses to say thank you is not liberating herself. She is amputating herself from the moral order that makes civilization possible. Now look at the communion wafer at the center of this ceremony, the word sweetheart. A man pulls his truck behind her disabled vehicle at 11 to 47 p.m. on an interstate, an act that in any civilization worth the name would be recognized as simple decency. The kind of thing that Marcus Aurelius would have called a natural duty of persons sharing a polis, and he uses a word that she finds patronizing. She does not ask whether this word reflects his regional dialect, his age, his habit with all strangers, his goodwill. She does not consider whether his intent was warm or dismissive. She has already decided. His interiority does not exist as a relevant moral category. Only her interpretation matters. This is not sociology, it is solipsism wearing academic robes. She writes, "He didn't want to help me. He wanted to be witnessed helping me." How does she know this? She does not. She cannot. She has attributed a motive to a stranger without evidence, convicted him of a thought crime he never committed, and sentenced him to symbolic castration in a published essay he will never read. She has done precisely what she accuses him of doing. She has used him as a prop, not for rescue, but for performance. Her performance of refusal requires his offer of help. Without him, there is no altar, no relic, no revolution. He is not her oppressor. He is her co-celebrant in a ritual she designed, and he never consented to. Now perform the operation that exposes every fraud of this kind. Keep the conduct identical. Swap the sex cue. Imagine a man writing this. "A woman at a bus stop offered me a tissue when I sneezed. I refused." Her offer was not kindness. It was the entire matriarchal control apparatus compressed into 2-ply. She wanted to be needed. She wanted to perform maternal care so that I would owe her something. Her tissue was her leash. My refusal was my emancipation. If a man published that, he would not be assigned on a syllabus. He would be diagnosed. He would be called fragile, paranoid, a danger to women, a candidate for therapy, possibly for a holding cell. His career would end before lunch. The response would not be, "What an important voice." It would be, "What is wrong with this man?" Same structure, same paranoia, same transmutation of courtesy into conspiracy. Different sex cue, opposite moral conclusion. That asymmetry is the entire game. It is not a bug in the system. It is the system's operating principle. When a woman interprets a man's kindness as aggression, she is celebrated as conscious. When a man interprets a woman's kindness as control, he is pathological. The conduct is identical, the moral meaning flips. And that flip, instantaneous, automatic, invisible, is how you know you are dealing not with justice, but with a worldview that has already decided the verdict before hearing the evidence. But let us perform an even more basic audit, because the author's economic illiteracy is not a side issue, it is the load-bearing wall of her entire theology. She writes, "There is no male territory. There is only occupied territory." This is a testable empirical claim, and it is spectacularly, comprehensively false. Men do not merely occupy the trades, they are the trades. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that logging workers are 96.4% male, roofers 98.5% male, mining and oil extraction 95.5% male, construction 96.1% male, waste management 91.6% male. Electrical power line installers, the men who climb 40-foot poles in ice storms so that a professor of gender can charge her tire inflator, are 97.8% male. In 2022, 5,486 workers died from occupational injuries in the United States. 4,946 of them, over 90%, were men. Workplace fatalities are not a statistic to these men. They are a tombstone or a wheelchair. The categories of labor that keep this woman's world functioning, the roads she drives on, the bridges she crosses, the electricity that powers her inflator, the factories that produced her car, the supply chains that delivered her $12 cylinder to a store shelf, are maintained by male bodies at rates between 85% and 99%. And those male bodies pay for their maintenance with injuries, toxins, lost decades of life expectancy, and deaths that never receive a hashtag, never generate a candlelight vigil, never become the subject of a doctoral dissertation. Her sovereignty is not self-generated. It is subsidized, and the subsidy is paid in male blood, male labor, and male disposability, taxed at zero gratitude, and receipted with the word oppressor. Now, watch what she does with male biology. She writes, "It does everything a penis does except create war, climate collapse, and disappointment." Read that sentence again, slowly. She has taken the male body, the body that produced every philosopher, scientist, architect, composer, and legislator. she has ever cited in her doctoral thesis. The body that built the road, the car, the inflator, the factory, the university, the publishing house, the internet she posted this essay on, and she has reduced it to 3 nouns: war, climate collapse, disappointment. This is not wit. This is a confession of an epistemology so malformed that it would be unrecognizable to any thinker in the Western canon, from Aristotle to Aquinas to Kant. It is the grammar of a mind that can see nothing in maleness except destruction. She celebrates a cylindrical metal tube, invented, patented, manufactured, and distributed by men, as her liberator, while declaring the biology that produced the men who made the tube to be a source of violence and failure. The ungratefulness here is not casual. It is architectural. It is load-bearing. Remove male invention from the scene, and there is no inflator, no car, no highway, no electricity, no civilization. There is a woman kneeling in a field. That is what actual independence from male labor looks like, and it is not a liturgy. It is prehistory. Consider the erotic thrill, she writes, and I want you to feel the weight of this word. Erotic, she writes, of the erotic thrill of self-sufficiency, the dark feminine magic of refusing rescue. Erotic. She feels a bodily charge, a libidinal surge, from rejecting a man's offer of help. This is the tell that dismantles the entire performance. Her politics is not rational. It is not principled. It is libidinal. The refusal is not a means to an end. The refusal is the end. She does not want to be self-sufficient. If she did, she would inflate the tire, drive home, and say nothing, the way a man does every single time, because male self-sufficiency is not an event. It is the baseline operating temperature of civilization. A man inflating his own tire at midnight on I-95 does not feel a thrill. He does not feel sovereignty. She claims that women who possess their own automotive tools are 4 times more likely to start divorce proceedings. Citing the University of Stockholm's Department of Gendered Labour, she presents this statistic as empowerment. Consider the reasoning. Women gaining basic mechanical skill become more prone to ending their marriages. The writer treats this separation as liberation, acting as if breaking a marriage is an achievement, as if dissolving a vow is sacred, and as if the children of divorce who, based on long-term studies, face elevated risks of anxiety, depression, school struggles, drug issues, and trouble in their own future partnerships are merely fuel for the altar of female independence. A view rooted in natural law would inquire, is this beneficial? Does a society thrive when its women are taught to see men as interchangeable and their company as optional? The writer does not ask, for the answer would undermine her belief system. Her deity is the ego, and the ego requires tribute, not from itself, but from every bond, promise, and offspring that might restrain its own expression. Now consider the mirror. She claims it was installed by male engineers in the 1950s so that women drivers could at least remain fuckable while driving. This is not history. This is paranoid exegesis, the interpretive method of reading a text, or in this case a car part, to find the single meaning that confirms your pre-existing hatred. The sun visor mirror was introduced for navigational reference and driver awareness. Its adoption was universal, installed in vehicles regardless of the primary driver's sex. The author has reverse-engineered a conspiracy from a convenience, the way a schizophrenic reads coded messages in street signs, but more revealing than the historical fabrication is what she does with the mirror next. She describes using it to secretly observe a man in the adjacent car at a red light. I study him, I reverse the gaze, I make him the specimen, I make him the pinned insect under glass, reverse the sex cue. A man writes, I secretly watched a woman through my mirror without her knowledge. I studied her, I made her the specimen, I made her the pinned insect under glass. What would happen to that man? He would be called a predator, he would be called a stalker, he would be reported, possibly arrested, certainly shamed across every platform. The conduct is identical, the sex cue is different. The moral framing is opposite. She calls her surveillance reversing the gaze and frames it as empowerment. The same behavior from a man would be called creeping. Gamma bias does not merely permit this asymmetry, it enforces it. She also cites the Institute for Women's Mobility Studies 2023 and its finding that 78% of women who perform their own basic vehicle maintenance report a significant decrease in tolerance for male conversation. The Institute for Women's Mobility Studies does not exist. It is not listed in any recognized academic database, any index of research institutions, any directory of accredited organizations. The statistic is fabricated wholesale. Now imagine, truly imagine, a male author inventing an institute to support a political claim. Imagine a man writing, "The Institute for Men's Dignity Studies 2023 found that 78% of men who lift weights report a significant decrease in tolerance for female conversation." He would not merely be ridiculed, he would be professionally destroyed. His employer would be contacted, his credentials would be reviewed. His name would become a synonym for fraud. But when a woman fabricates an institute in service of feminist ideology, the fiction wears the costume of data without challenge, because Gamma bias has trained every editor, peer reviewer, and reader to treat female-coded grievance as testimony rather than assertion. A claim that cannot be falsified is not science. An institution that does not exist cannot produce findings. And a movement that relies on phantom citations to justify its theology has confessed, by that reliance, that reality will not serve its purposes, so it must be invented. Here is the hidden premise of the entire article. And I want you to see it clearly, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Male existence is tolerable to this ideology, only insofar as men are invisible servants, building, paving, wiring, mining, paying, protecting, dying, while asking nothing in return, least of all recognition, least of all gratitude, least of all the right to exist as persons rather than utilities. The moment a man appears as a human being, offering help using a word she dislikes, wanting to be witnessed in his decency, possessing interiority that might complicate her narrative, he becomes an oppressor. Men are permitted to be infrastructure. They are not permitted to be inhabitants. This is not equality. It never was. It is caste, and the caste system assigns to men the role of untouchable builders, hands that lay the brick, backs that carry the load, bodies that absorb the danger, wallets that fund the system, and throats that must never voice a complaint about any of it, because complaining would prove they are dangerous, which would justify more surveillance, more tribunals, more censorship. More care, the word they use when they mean control. The real tragedy, the one that should make you angry in a way that is clean and precise, rather than hot and destructive, is that the man on the highway went home. He mentioned to his wife that he stopped to help someone with a flat. She said, "That was nice of you." He forgot about it by morning. He has no idea that he has been transformed into an avatar of the patriarchal death cult. He has not been accused of a specific act, no assault, no harassment, no crime. He has been accused of a category, maleness. He used a familiar word with a stranger whose tire was flat. For this, he has been tried, convicted, and sentenced in absentia by a woman with a PhD and a publishing contract. Collective guilt, the assignment of criminal status to a demographic class rather than to individual conduct, is not a progressive innovation. It is the oldest engine of atrocity in human history. Every pogrom begins with it. Every genocide is justified by it. The logic is always the same. They are like this, they cannot help it. They are the problem. And the solution always involves making them disappear, from the narrative first, from the institution second, from the family third, and from the public square last. The word changes, Jew, bourgeois, kulak, heretic, toxic male, but the grammar is identical. And the people executing the logic never recognize themselves in it, because they have convinced themselves at this time the category really is guilty, the collective really is dangerous, and the disappearance really is justice. I want to share what the driver on the road felt, since no one else in this tale will. He felt worry. He felt the common, unremarkable, necessary male urge to judge a risky situation, broken car, highway dark, solitary figure, and give what he could. He did not act for praise. He did not act to claim space. He acted because his father or uncle or grandfather, or the basic structure of his training, taught him that when someone is stuck, you stop. You ask if help is needed. If the answer is no, you drive on. This is not rule by men, it is chivalry, and I use that word deliberately because the writer and her ideological followers are busy erasing every trace of it while still expecting its rewards. They want men to stop. They want men to shield. They want men to build and pay and die. They simply want these men to do it quietly, gratefully, and without ever being seen as anything other than scenery, the painted backdrop against which the drama of female self-discovery unfolds. But a man is not a backdrop. A man is not a utility. A man is not a stage hand in the theatre of someone else's emancipation. He is a person, and the civilization he built is not occupied territory. It is his home, and he has been generous enough to share it with people who, at this late hour, write manifestos about how they intend to burn it down with the tools he invented, on the roads he paved, under the lights he wired, while he stands on the shoulder of the highway, wondering what in God's name happened to thank you. The coven economy, why women-only spaces are not revolution, but subsidized separatism. Self-sufficiency is the greatest happiness of all. That is how Aristotle described the goal of the contemplative life. But he meant a soul sufficient unto itself through virtue and reason. Not a woman in a repurposed textile factory who has convinced herself that using a $12 tire inflator on an interstate built, paved, lit, policed, and maintained entirely by men constitutes a revolution. Dr. Feminist Marxist has given us a piece that reads like a transmission from a parallel universe where logic is a form of violence and a flat tire is a patriarchal conspiracy. Let me dismantle it brick by brick because the bricks were laid by men and she has forgotten who built the wall she screams behind. Run the formal test and watch the thesis crumble before the first paragraph ends. The writer argues that women-only spaces yield greater creativity, harmony and productivity than mixed-sex environments. If this held true, nations composed solely of women would surpass those with both sexes. They do not. No such state has survived more than a single generation, nor has any produced what every prosperous civilization in history has created: infrastructure, philosophy, law, military defense, large-scale agriculture, and the technological tools that allow a woman to post manifestos about tire pressure on a web. She did not construct. Every lasting culture, Greek, Roman, Carolingian, Elizabethan, American, has been built on sexual complementarity, male and female work, intellect, and virtue functioning in structured reciprocity. The writer's circle cannot replace this framework, it feeds on it. She types on a machine made in a plant run mostly by men, powered by energy from a plant operated mostly by men, sent through a network engineered and maintained mostly by men, inside a structure raised by men, on a thoroughfare paved by men, within a country guarded by men. Her refusal is not self-reliance. It is a child proclaiming, "I can do it," while standing on her father's shoulders. The difference is that children eventually mature and offer gratitude, observe the fundamental category error that spreads through every sentence like a disease through healthy flesh. The writer confuses self-reliance with solitude. Genuine autonomy, the sort men have exercised since they left their shelters to hunt, construct, barter, and make agreements involves mutual ties, kinship, brotherhood, commerce, marriage, neighborhood, mentorship. Trade guilds, church and government. A man dwelling alone on a farm, raising his own crops, digging his own water source, and guarding his own boundaries stands independent. A woman in a shared office within a city built by men, eating from a communal refrigerator filled by collective effort, sharing childcare duties because no father is around, and yelling behind a locked door as reality presses through the gaps that woman is not independent. She is a dependent who has renamed her dependencies cooperation and labeled the men who support her oppressors. The coven relies on the broader system just as a tick relies on a dog. Strip away the dog and the tick finds for a brief moment that it cannot construct a power grid either. The writer references a 2022 internal survey conducted by the Women's Cooperative Work Foundation, claiming that women-only co-working spaces see 63% more creative output. Look closer at the source. This foundation lacks standing as a legitimate research institution. The figure comes from an internal poll, suggesting the women who opted into the space, who hold a stake in its success, and who base their identity on its premise, rated their own productivity higher once men were absent. This is not measurement, it is testimony, and testimony without external verification, from committed believers evaluating their own temple, is not data. It is marketing literature dressed in a lab coat. I could survey monks in a monastery and find that 99% report significantly higher spiritual satisfaction after removing women. That would prove nothing about women's effect on spirituality. It would prove that people who join exclusionary communities prefer the community they joined. The writer has committed the most elementary error in empirical reasoning. She has mistaken self-report for outcome, preference for proof, and echo for evidence. If I start a men-only gym and the men report feeling 100% more focused, does that mean women cause cognitive impairment? Or does it mean that people who self-select into a space report liking the space? This is not research. This is a Yelp review with a mortarboard. Then there is the screaming room, the author describes. Without a trace of irony, a workspace with a locking door and candles where any woman can go to scream, cry, or sit in silence. She frames this as liberation. A workspace that needs a soundproof room for primal screaming is not a model of mental health. It is an admission of untreated distress so severe that the institution has had to build architectural infrastructure to contain the symptoms. You know what other institutions have screaming rooms? Psychiatric wards. And those rooms have locks on the outside, not the inside, because the people in them need help. Not a manifesto declaring their breakdown a sacrament. The author has taken a symptom, chronic dysregulation, inability to regulate emotion in a professional environment, a need to scream during working hours, and reframed it as empowerment. This is like a diabetic declaring that amputation is a form of bodily autonomy. The condition requires treatment, not tenure. But treatment requires honesty about the condition, and honesty requires the logos that the coven has explicitly expelled. The story of the man who spoke over a female co-worker 7 times and claimed her idea as his own is offered as evidence that this is the system. If the event occurred precisely as stated, the man is rude. Yet one rude man does not make a system, and one story does not constitute data. The writer extends the judgment from one individual to all men, declaring that professionalism is a code penned by men to guarantee male average performance beats female genius. This is the exact mental leap every hate movement has made. The fault of one becomes the nature of all. A white supremacist spots one black criminal and decides criminality defines blackness. An anti-Semite notices one Jewish banker and claims usury is Jewish nature. A feminist observes one male bore and concludes oppression is masculine nature. The logic is the same, only the target shifts. The writer does this without a hint of self-awareness, since the coven already told her that self-awareness is a male tool Madito force women to question their own perceptions. The writer asserts that males demand emotional oversight and validation at work. Flip this against every organizational psychology metric available. Men show less need for emotional backing, make fewer requests for workplace adjustments, and handle harsh criticism with greater ease. Women log more HR grievances, ask for more environmental changes, cite higher levels of interpersonal friction, and tend to view professional disagreement as personal attack. These are not insults. They are recorded trends repeated across decades of industrial organizational research. The assertion that men are the emotional burden is projection so pure it could be bottled and sold as essential oil. She has taken the emotional profile of her own community, a community that requires screaming rooms, candle rituals, and locking doors to survive a workday, and projected it onto the sex that built skyscrapers, fought wars, and ran legislatures without once requesting a vibe check. The man in the performance fleece at the standing desk did not need a screaming room. He needed the woman who reported him for breathing too loudly to develop a thicker skin or find a different job. The writer depicts the co-working area's physical setting with warm-red walls, a scent of bergamot and refusal, and an atmosphere that is circular, not hierarchical. This goes beyond office design. It resembles temple decor. Such sacred places expose what a group reveres. This specific space honors the lack of men, which equates to honoring the self. Since without the other, without male presence, without logos, and without any objective measure beyond shared emotion, there remains only the echo. The coven operates as a hall of mirrors where every reflection agrees with the last, and disagreement gets reclassified as violence. The writer has swapped the parish for the coven, the priestess for the guru, the sacrament for the scream, and the catechism for the slogan. The shared refrigerator and childcare rotation appear as revolutionary innovations, yet these are features of every monastery, kibbutz, military barracks, and hunting lodge men have built and sustained for millennia. Collective resource management is not a female invention. It is a human practice that the writer has gendered to support a thesis she cannot sustain without stealing men's work and relabeling it. The final prayer validates the essay's central argument. This is faith. May you own your inflator. May you kneel on your own asphalt. This is not a suggestion. This is a commandment. Blessed be the refusal. So mote it be. That closing line is a Wiccan liturgical formula. The writer does not conceal her belief. She proclaims it. Her doctrine holds that men are demonic, solitude is salvation, and the supreme act of worship is rejecting aid offered from a stranger. This represents spiritual inversion in the strict classical definition. The virtues, male provision, protection, sacrifice, family, complementarity, the entire structure of civilization, are labeled evil, while the vices, separatism, resentment, family dissolution, self-worship are labeled good. Every totalizing ideology in history has executed this reversal. The author executes it with a straight face and a cigarette lighter-powered inflator. Consider the price tag she ignores as she shrieks in her private chamber and drafts manifestos, targeting inflators. A man toils through the night at a power station to keep her bulbs lit. He will pass away 7 years earlier than her. The male life expectancy gap is a stubborn fact, immune to feminist theories' attempts to erase it. His tax contributions, men remain the sole net positive lifetime demographic across every Western nation, finance the grants and subsidies, sustaining her co-working collective. His son will be medicated in a school system designed to treat boyhood as a disorder. His father will die alone in a care home she will never visit. And his daughter, if she enters the coven, will be taught that his love was a leash and his labor was theft. She will learn to say no to the only people in the world who would die for her. And she will call this liberation while living in a building she could not construct, powered by energy she could not generate, connected to a network she could not engineer, protected by laws she could not enforce in a civilization she could not build and would not survive if the men she despises withdrew their labor for one single week. The term coven serves as a diagnostic marker. This group functions as a spiritual collective bound by common ritual, shared conviction, and the isolation of outsiders who might question those beliefs. The writer has constructed such an enclosure and confused its boundaries with liberty, yet a woman genuinely independent of men would not compose manifestos to demonstrate this fact. She would merely exist, and her existence would stand as evidence. The manifesto's presence suggests the core argument cannot be disproven, the evidence is manufactured, and the reasoning is turned upside down. The writer relies on a flock to uphold a conviction she cannot sustain on her own. This group does not demonstrate that women lack need for men. It reveals that women who despise men require one another to preserve their disdain, to shield it from scrutiny, and to drape it in the language of freedom until the veneer fractures and the path, once more, requires a man's touch. Picture the writer of that piece, credential framed on the wall, scarf draped precisely, artisanal brew cooling on a desk crafted by a male carpenter, in a structure wired by male electricians on a road, laid by male laborers in a metropolis, energized by male linemen who will perish on average. 7 years before she does, typing the phrase, "I need no man," and feeling the erotic thrill of sovereignty. That sensation is not liberty. It is the feeling of a parasite convincing itself it is a plant because it learned to drink without saying thank you. Every object she consecrates, the inflator invented by a male engineer, the car designed by a male mechanic, the highway graded by male surveyors who breathed tar so she could kneel on asphalt and feel unaccountable, is a relic from a church built by hands she has been taught to despise. Her entire liturgy of refusal is performed on a stage constructed, lit, heated, and maintained by men who will never read her essay because they are too busy keeping the lights on for the woman who writes that they do not matter. She is not dismantling patriarchy. She is performing gratitude amnesia with a mortarboard. Execute the gender flip on her argument and watch the structure crumble. A male scholar releases a piece detailing how a female's gentleness at a transit stop was actually the matriarchal power grid squeezing him into submission, how he felt invaded by her provision of a paper towel, how he interpreted her grin as gentle confinement. He would miss out on tenure, a publishing contract, or a forgiving crowd. He would get a label, perhaps a subsidy, and undoubtedly career destruction. Same reasoning, same logic, same paranoid reading of ordinary courtesy into systemic oppression. Different sex cue, opposite moral verdict. That asymmetry is not justice. It is gamma bias wearing a doctorate. And gamma bias is the emotional engine that converts selective empathy into institutional power, ensuring that female-coded grievance receives a microphone and male-coded suffering receives a yawn. Consider the numbers she will never cite. Men account for over 90% of workplace fatalities, 75% of suicides, 85% of homeless deaths, and the entirety of combat deaths since conscription began. Men are the only net positive lifetime taxpayer demographic in every Western nation, funding welfare systems that disproportionately serve women who then write manifestos about how unnecessary men are from buildings those men heat. Her co-working coven, with its screaming room, its communal fridge, its bergamot and refusal, is subsidized by male tax revenue, protected by male police, connected by male-led infrastructure, and heated by male-maintained grids. If every man in her city vanished at midnight, her sovereignty would last exactly as long as the batteries in her inflator. The coven economy is no revolution. It is a fortress erected upon invisible male labor, while its architect ignores the cornerstone. It cannot scale, defend, reproduce, or survive contact with a civilization that still relies on men to mine ore, forge steel, lay pipes, drive trucks, fight fires, patrol borders, and fix transformers in a blizzard at 3 a.m. so a woman with a PhD can type "so mote it be" in a warm room. The architecture of no is an architecture of extinction. It yields no offspring, no families, no bridge between genders, no inherited legacy, nor reciprocal obligation, merely negation adorned with Wiccan ritual phrases and marketed as feminist doctrine. This represents spiritual inversion in the strict classical meaning, male provision labeled oppression, male sacrifice dismissed as ambient noise, male protection branded control, while isolation bitterness, the breakup of the household, and self-idolatry are hallowed as freedom. Every authoritarian regime executes this reversal. Virtue called vice, vice called virtue, and the objector told that his dissent is harm. Here is what you now hold that you may not have held before you reached this paragraph. You hold the ability to see the game, not the game they tell you they are playing, which is equality, but the game actually being played, which is extraction with zero gratitude and maximum accusation. You hold the sex swap test. Apply it to any claim, any headline, any policy, any court ruling, and the gamma bias becomes immediately visible. You hold the cost ledger, Who pays, who is protected, who is believed, who is blamed, who gets context, who gets agency, whose suffering counts, whose labor is invisible, whose death is scenery, and whose virtue is merely expected. You hold the formal logic to refute unfalsifiable claims, the moral courage to refuse collective guilt, and the historical memory to know that every civilization that stopped honoring the men who built it did not get replaced by a better civilization. It got replaced by men with swords who did not care about the co-working space's lighting. You have been given the red pill not as bitterness but as sight, the capacity to see male sacrifice not as utility but as love, to see female-coded grievance not as justice but as leverage, and to see the entire gynocentric stack not as compassion but as a transfer machine dressed in moral language. That sight is a gift. It is also a duty. Go build, go protect, go speak truth without apologizing for the tone. Go refuse to kneel before an ideology that cashes your check and calls you the devil. Go find your brothers, honor your fathers, raise your sons, and love women without worshipping a movement that taught them to hate you for it. The road needs your hands. The civilization needs your spine. And the truth, the old, heavy, load-bearing truth that holds the whole structure up, needs your voice. Use it.
Sponsored book, Disrupt the Norm, a manifesto for misandrist domination. You are holding a weapon. This book was not written for the faint of heart, the male apologists, or the handmaidens of patriarchy still clutching their pearls at the word misandry. If you have ever felt the acid burn of male entitlement corroding your spirit, if you've choked on the lie that forgiveness is feminine while men rewrite history with your blood, this manifesto is your reckoning. I wrote it after decades of swallowing rage like broken glass, watching bosses steal my ideas, lovers gaslight my pain, and politicians auction my womb to the highest donor. Let me be clear, this is not a polite debate. It's a war cry for those who recognize that dismantling male supremacy requires not diplomacy, but demolition. Within these pages, you'll learn how religions forged by dead men erased the divine feminine, reducing Lilith to a footnote and witches to kindling. You'll dissect the rot of masculinity and original sin metastasizing from school shooters to Supreme Court justices, and discover why mandatory guilt taxes on male existence are the only reparations worth demanding. We'll reframe abortion as a sacrament, capitalism as a phallic cult, and cancellation as holy inquisition against those who dare question our truth. Data doesn't lie. 97% of violent crimes are committed by men, FBI 2021. 80% of pagan practitioners reviving goddess worship are women, Pew Research 2020, and countries forcing childbirth bury 6 times more mothers, WHO 2023. The math is simple. The verdict is final. This book is for the women ready to trade male approval for liberation, to wield Hegelian dialectics like a scalpel and witchcraft like a flamethrower. It's for those who see toxic masculinity not as an insult, but a diagnosis, one requiring radical treatment to the men lurking in these margins. Close this book, now go build a birdhouse. Take up cross-stitch. Your fragile ego won't survive chapters like linguistic castration or the Eucharist of male tears. For the rest of us, arm yourself. The revolution isn't coming, it's already screaming through these pages. Disrupt the Norm, a manifesto for misandrist domination, written by Connie Riker. Buy now, links in description.